All right, so this is an interesting topic because it's kind of a follow-up from a topic that we discussed last week regarding Morgan Wallen, the artist who got caught on camera saying the N-word. And we have a follow-up article here that exposes that he donated $500,000 to Black...
Say it without cracking up.
Man, I'm trying not to. To Black Music Action Coalition and other racial justice organizations. Man, this is... What do you think about this? This is a trip.
Yeah. First of all, what does that even mean? Black Music Action Coalition. Like, what is that?
Bro.
Like, what is... Does anybody... The headline is just like... The headlines are always... Here's a bunch of money for somebody's cause,
Right.
that nobody actually looks into the cause,
Right.
and asks, is this even necessary, or did some people just get emotional
Yeah.
and start something?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is reactive, and feel free to disagree with me. I can back up my
actually
point,
with you, yeah.
but people get emotional and reactive, and then also don't look at like the absurdities of all the moral relativism that goes into these issues. So what I mean by that, I actually did go look into the Black Music Coalition.
It's hilarious.
And it's just like this idea that if you're Black, we'll support you. Kind of one of those things.
Okay.
And it almost like, if you're Black, this trumps any active moral failures that you have, because there's these other moral failures about, racism, or we'll call them on their website. It would say like, systemic racism or something like that, right? Not to say that doesn't ever exist.
Yeah.
I am saying in many of the cases that people are raising money for that, you know what, that's not why.
Yeah.
Or that's not the issue that really needs to be talked about right here, right now.
Okay.
So my thought behind it is, I could be wrong. He probably has a publicist person. They said, hey, here's one. Let's throw this here. Let's throw this money to this one, and that's going to be a good idea, right?
Yeah.
However, the part that I'll say makes me sad more than anything is that like these like news organizations and coalitions and all this other stuff will pump up artists or acts that people are doing that are just not good for society. Like we talked about the whole performance with Megan Thee Stallion and somebody else at the Grammys. Who was
Cardi
it?
B.
Cardi B at the Grammys. And it was expressed in certain headlines as like, this is, I think somebody called it sexual freedom.
Okay.
Right? So they can put whatever wording into whatever they want and make you try to think that this is something good. And then if something else happens that's, they deem a moral failure, then they just switch the headline language.
Facts.
Instead, like, you can't be both morally relative and outraged at the same time. You have to pick one.
Yeah.
Because if you're morally relative, then that means you can't get outraged at anybody else who's also morally relative.
Exactly. Because they can do the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what drives me crazy about stuff like, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because on their list of the Black Music Coalition's roster, like all these people who, which we've gone over before, make a bunch of songs about killing other people, specifically killing other Black people, or going out and sleeping around town, or like doing all this other stuff that is like, if you look at the end of the day, is this good for society as a whole? No, it's not. It's never going to be.
Yeah.
Like you can call it whatever you want. I don't care if you call it sexual freedom. Like just because you put the word freedom at the end of it doesn't mean that person is actually free.
Yeah.
Like this is not benefiting people.
100%.
And in this $500,000, like, look, I hope that they do something good with it, right? But acting like we're going to be morally outraged over somebody calling somebody else the N-word when, I'm sure a ton of people that are listed on this Black Music Coalition. I can go list off more.
Yeah.
But I did a video before where it's going through all the top songs on Spotify's Rap Caviar. I think it was the day after they posted their Black Square to show in support of Blackout Tuesday. And, oh, these black people are so downtrodden. But here's these 50 songs about these black people killing other black people because they're so downtrodden. We're just going to keep pushing these. And we're in support of you and pat you on the back. Yeah, just no. This is all insanity if you look at it with some clear eyes and look down in. Like, if you actually want to help people, then be consistent in helping people. That's what makes me upset about this stuff. Yeah. So the Morgan Wallen thing, I think, I don't know. Maybe the guy felt guilty, or he had a publicist in his ear saying, go do this. I don't really know. Yeah. But, like, it's just kind of absurd to me that, like, if you're a part of this, like, they call it woke culture now. So if you're part of the woke culture, then it's okay to be morally relative unless you don't like somebody else's moral relativism.
Yeah. I think in which case you would have to identify, like, what's your moral standard? You know what I'm saying? I think that people do have different moral standards. And because of that, you know, I mean, you know me personally, man. You know, I'm a man of faith. You know, I know where my standard lies. But I think the challenge comes when I expect other people to live by the same standard as I do, even though they might have a different worldview or value system. And I'm speaking to hip hop on that one as well. So you have a lot of artists that share the sentiment of, a lot of hip hop or gangster rap artists that share the sentiment of, hey, I want to stop people getting shot in the streets. I want to stop seeing my people killed, but I'm going to keep making music about folks killing each other because my art is a representation of what I see. Now, that sounds cute, but is it smart? Is it wise? Absolutely not, because that art is just going to keep perpetuating a lot of the stuff that you don't want to see anymore. But, you know, I think, kind of going back to what you were saying in terms of, like, you know, why in mass pop culture, you know, folks, you know, are morally relative, but they get outraged when something happens, and, you know, they always are trying to, like, preach against these things. And I think that commonly happens, man, because a lot of the content that we see put out there, we've gotten kind of desensitized to what's being said, and we just kind of go with the flow until something actually pops off, and then we want to speak up and say something about it. Or if it makes us uncomfortable to try to really fix the issue, we'll try to justify the action or whatever is going on by tweaking the wording a bit in terms of what we label it. And, you know, I think it's tough. It's a tough one, but I do think people have to identify, you know, what their moral standard is and not be hypocritical when it comes to living by that living and dying by that moral standard.
The thing, all right, so yeah, I'm going to just piggyback off that real quick. So the other question to ask ourselves, and this can go beyond music too, because you asked what's your standard, right?
Yeah.
Unless your standard is that it submits to a higher standard, then there is no way to have a universal standard.
Facts.
Otherwise, I'll say that again. Unless your standard submits to a higher standard, then there is no way to have a universal standard because you've already submitted that everybody's standard, which is inevitably going to be different, is of the same caliber. Like, everybody gets the same caliber, but everybody's is different. And then we'll be outraged if Morgan Wallen says the N-word. But I didn't see any article about rapper XYZ having a top song on Spotify that's actively talking about, you know, misogyny and all the other stuff. Right? So at the end of the day, if you cannot submit to a higher standard, like, you know, obviously I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. If you guys are listening and you're not Christian, like, that's, we get that. Not everybody's going to be a Christian. However, you do have to ask yourself, am I at least, at the very least, being logically consistent with the standard I'm applying to myself and to others.
That's right.
Okay? So if you're not there on the faith thing yet, or I don't know what faith you are, or whatever you're going through right now, but at the very least, am I being consistent? Am I divided against myself? Right?
Come on.
So if you're not going to apply this the same way across the board, and this applies to any ethnicity overall. This is not just like, talking about saying the N-word. This is just like using this as a conversation about this. Be consistent with your thought pattern, and don't just follow. I think another thing that happens is that there's some well-meaning people who are more emotional. Like I get that I'm just like a more logical guy, but there are some well-meaning people who are more emotional, and they'll have friends who are also on the more emotional side, and they want to listen to their friend, and they're getting this filter in. They're trying their best to be compassionate. Yeah, but it's from the viewpoint of like somebody who may not have been thinking about everything I just said.
Facts.
Right? So try your best to even have people in your corner who disagree with you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
So that's unpopular these days to have somebody who disagrees with you around. But there's people who work here who would probably disagree with a lot of what I just said. Some of what I just said. They wouldn't agree with everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
They wouldn't agree with everything. But like having debate grows your critical thinking.
Yes.
There needs to be more open debate in society, because like if you're just in this echo chamber and you want all your confirmation bias, that's not good.
Yeah.
Like you need to hear the opposing views so that you can change, or so that you can think of ways that your viewpoint becomes even stronger. Like if you hear these opposing viewpoints, and you can think through how your viewpoint still holds, not for the sake of an argument, but for the sake of like knowing what you believe, then that makes yours stronger.
Yes.
And then you can lead more people into it if you think that is the best course of action. So, I know this might be a heavier episode or whatever, but like this is stuff people need to think about.
Yeah, 100%, man.